everybody, it's Mike here from The Art of Guitar. I'm finally here with the KORN concert review video. I know I've been dragging my feet a little bit because it happened back in October of 2024. But the good news is I got a lot of video from the show, a lot of pictures, and my brain is pretty good at remembering details from concerts. So it's gonna be like it just happened the other day for me. So my friend Christopher and I were at Iron Maiden. We had floor tickets, which was sweet. We're waiting for the opening band to come out, and Chris looks down at his phone and he goes, "Oh my God, I guess GOJIRA is opening for KORN at this very venue in 5 days. Do you wanna go?" And I'm like, yes, let's do it. He's like, tickets are $300 for lower level, but there's 2 that I can get. I'm like, let's just go for it. Now, Chris had just become a huge GOJIRA fan, and I was excited for him to see them live because I heard that they put on insane live shows. So I wake up the morning of the KORN concert to a text from Chris, and it said, "Man, I am sick. I can't go to the show." He was willing to just give me his $300 ticket as well so I could bring somebody, but I was like, nah, that's not really fair to you, man. Why don't we just try to sell them back and you can get your money back? So he put them up for sale and they just went right away. The rest of the day I had this kind of pit in my stomach. You know, I just felt like, oh, that would have been so cool to see them. Especially because I've been a huge KORN fan since like 94, 95. And I'm a fan of GOJIRA. Plus I wanted to hear SPIRITBOX because I've heard so much about them. So out of curiosity, I went on StubHub and looked up a single ticket at the last minute. And it said that I could get one, but it would be the same price as my ticket was. However, at checkout, they added a bunch of fees like they do, and it ended up being $100 more. And I was just like, screw it, kind of out of protest. I'm like, I am not going to pay all those fees, you know? And all of a sudden I thought, why don't I just check Ticketmaster, you know, because sometimes they have a different structure happening. I ended up finding a single ticket, which was right in front of the soundboard, which is where I like to stand usually anyway. And it was only $150, so it was half the price of the original ticket that I bought. I nabbed the ticket and I busted ass out the door to get to the XL as soon as possible because I was already behind. I thought, you know what, I'm going to probably miss SPIRITBOX, which is a bummer, but at least I could see the last 2 bands. Another reason I didn't want to miss the show, even though Chris couldn't go, was because it was a big deal for KORN because it's their 30th anniversary tour, and it was their last show in the United States before they took a couple months off, kind of like I did before doing this review, and going overseas. So whenever that happens, I'm excited because I'm like, the bands are probably going to give all of their effort because they know they're going to get a nice little break, a nice buffer between this show and their next one. Because Chris and I had gone to Iron Maiden 5 days ago, and Chris knows all the secret parking spots to hit, I was able to park where we parked for Maiden, and I was able to get into the XL quickly, fast enough to actually see the opening band, SPIRITBOX. So I ran in, I grabbed a drink, $40 for a double Jack on the rocks like I always do, and made my way down those stairs to the floor level. You have to remember, this was a few days before Halloween, so a lot of people were dressed in the craziest stuff. You know, you're at a KORN concert before Halloween, you're gonna see some shit. And it was pretty dark because SPIRITBOX was about to go on, so they cut all the lights, and I'm going down the stairs, I'm like half blind, you know, and I find the row that I'm supposed to sit on, and it's just an entire row of empty seats in front of the soundboard. So I thought, I don't know which end I'm supposed to be on, so I tried to go to the other side, and I ended up tripping over this cover that they put over all the cables that go from the stage to the soundboard, and I spilt half my drink. I was like, great, that was like a $20 spill right there. Just as I spilled, this guy wearing a full clown outfit walks by and laughs. I was just like, oh God, this is surreal. As soon as SPIRITBOX took the stage, I could feel that they were going to be really powerful. You know, sometimes an opening act starts and it's like, oh, this feels really weak, you know, and you really hope that the bands, you know, get louder and more powerful as the night goes on. But it already felt like SPIRITBOX was like 80 to 85% of what I thought KORN was going to be at full power. So I was excited because for that kind of music, for SPIRITBOX's type of music, you really want to feel it, obviously. Back when I saw Tool at the same venue, the kick drum was just ripping my chest apart. It was so powerful. And the same thing was happening with SPIRITBOX. And I got a little bit freaked out. I'm like, if this is already happening for the first of 3 bands, what the hell is KORN gonna sound like? SPIRITBOX stands out because they have a female vocalist who could do some badass screams. And the band does some of the most badass drops that I've ever heard before. Check this out. Now, it's one thing to hear it on this video, but you could probably imagine how powerful that is live. I mean, your whole body is shaking. Every time it drops, it's just like you take a breath, you know, and then boom, it hits you again. Not only sonically, but visually as well. Just the way the lights went with it was so cool. So they had a pretty cool stage setup. It looked like a big, cage was behind them or something. But the only issue that I had was that you couldn't really see the band. I'm not really sure if they wanted that, but it was almost like they were back and side lit more. They didn't really have a lot of the front lights, which sometimes bands elect to do. I remember seeing Machines of Loving Grace at First Avenue. This is like 30 years ago, and they had no lights in the front. So it looked like 4 or 5, I forgot how many people are in that band, but it looked like just silhouettes playing music for it. It's kind of cool actually at first, but you do want to see them a little bit too. Now for a young band, you should want people to see you. When you get older and uglier like me, I could see wanting to cut the front lights and just be a silhouette, but it's crazy for a band like Spiritbox. One thing that I remember from Spiritbox's set is that they had this gigantic eyeball that stared at you almost the whole time. So it kind of freaked me out a little bit because the way it was waving, it kind of put you in a trance, and I had to shake myself out of it. And I kept thinking, like, is this like Illuminati stuff? This is kind of creepy. Totally something a band like Tool would have done, Even after Spiritbox's set, there was nobody on my row. So I was still the only one until a couple of guys trickled in eventually. They sat down, and it was funny because they kept looking at me and like gesturing with their hands like this. I'm like, what are they trying to tell me? And then I realized that they wanted me to actually push my chair back because all the chairs were connected, like a huge line, like a centipede or something. So I pushed my chair back and the whole row moved back. And it was great because suddenly we had a ton of leg room. Since we were the last row before the soundboard, we could push back. I didn't realize it. And it felt like I was in an airplane and I finally had tons of leg room and I could just relax, lay back, and enjoy the rest of the show that way. It was great. During the changeover to Gojira's set, I noticed that the roadies were wearing costumes. I think there was like a Freddy Krueger and a Jason, and I thought this is such a cool show to see right before Halloween. Well, they were putting together the drum kit, and I've never seen Gojira live, and they brought it out a half at a time. And it was one of the coolest drum kits ever. I thought this is the exact drum set I wanted ever since I was about 13. Double bass, chrome, light shining off of it. It looked really sweet. But they brought out the first half on this riser. And I looked at it, I'm like, there's no way Gojira has a single kick drum. And then they brought out the other half, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. They pushed them together. But still the kick drums were spread out quite a bit. I thought, man, this drummer is going to have some major man spreading going on. I was still joking in my head, even though I was at the show all by myself. You got to entertain yourself somehow. I looked around. I just noticed all the different people there. I'm used to going to metal concerts a lot, so I'm used to black t-shirts and stuff. Now, there were a lot of KORN t-shirts, but there were a ton of Gojira shirts as well. And people were just dressed crazy. It almost felt like I was at some kind of insane clown posse concert. Now, even though I've been a huge KORN fan since the mid-90s, you could tell I've never taken on the aesthetic of the typical KORN fan, if you will. I ran to my secret bathroom that I discovered at the XL. It's in the back corner. I shouldn't tell everybody, but you don't have to climb up all the stairs to get to the bathrooms. I get out just as the lights are going down for Gojira, and everybody is so excited. You could just feel this vibration surrounding me, just like everybody's buzzed with excitement. And they come on, and they open with Born for One Thing. And the pyro was going off, with the guitar riffs. It was just this spectacle. It was just larger than life what I was seeing and hearing. I could not believe it. And I was live streaming it, which is kind of a bummer because I really should have just taken it in, the whole experience. But I really wanted to show my subscribers some awesome Gojira footage. One thing I noticed right away that I never knew before was that Gojira is basically like the drummer Mario showcase. It's like if he did like a drum clinic and they just added riffs to it. He's up there in his tower just killing it. The lights are hitting him all the time. And I'm just like, he reminds me like a Keith Moon type. So he might be like the Keith Moon of metal. So he's locking it in, of course, just top-notch drumming, and the rest of the band is just locked in with him. And it's just this great powerful unit. And I always think that bands that have siblings, think Van Halen, Pantera, they always have like this added dimension of depth in how tight they are. It's hard to explain, but you just feel it when you see a band that's locked in like that. Now, even though Gojira was louder and a little bit more powerful than Spiritbox, it just seems to be the way it goes. When you're the opening band, you get a little bit less sound, I think. I still think they do that a little bit. But it wasn't so powerful that it was uncomfortable. It was just the right amount. I was just like, I could live with a whole night at this level. Suddenly the background, all the screens became like glitter, and it looked so incredible from where I was sitting. And they kicked into the song Stranded. And that's the tune that has that insane riff in it that utilizes the whammy pedal. And I love when the drums change the beat real quick. Just throws you off just a little bit. and then comes right back on. It's one of my favorite parts of any of their songs. And the way the singer Joe sings over this music is perfect because it's not too light and it's not too like heavy death metal. It's more of a shouting, powerful sound, and I think that works perfectly for this kind of music. I couldn't get over how locked into the music the lights were, and at first I thought they had just programmed them to be so tight with all the hits. Check this out. But I turn around and they have a light tech that was just matching everything perfectly. And, you know, the light tech doesn't always get very much love. And so after their set, I actually went up and shook his hand. I'm just like, dude, that was next level. I said, I haven't seen lights that tight since Mudvayne. If you watch my review on the Mudvayne show with Megadeth, you'll see what I'm talking about. Sadly, I had to run to the bathroom towards the end of Gojira's set. I was so bummed out. But as I'm going back, I realized that they had a girl doing sign language. It was actually a couple girls doing sign language to the lyrics, to the music. And I was like, I've never seen that before. That's incredible. And they were pretending to air guitar and stuff. And I just got a huge kick out of it. I had to record some of it. Afterwards, I went up to one of the girls and I asked her, I'm like, what do you do, you know, for like when they just shout or they yell? And she's like, well, it depends what the yell is trying to convey, where it's coming from. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot more to this sign language stuff than I even realized. She's like, if it comes from the gut or if it comes from the brain, it's different. I'm like, okay. And I kept thinking, what are they going to do for the beginning of Twist by KORN? And I'm sorry to say that I did not capture it on video, even though I planned on it. I just got too caught up. After Gojira got done, it was like the whole crowd collectively just went, whew. You know, it was like we all just experienced a marathon of insanity. I made the 1,000 stair climb to buy this shirt. I was originally going to buy a KORN shirt because I don't have one. And I thought, you know what? KORN is huge. You know, I'm sure they're fine financially. I want to help out a band that's a little bit smaller like Gojira. So I ended up with this shirt. And it's great because it fits me better than any shirt that I own. So sometimes you get lucky. Although it does look like some hands are grabbing my boobs. If you're from Minnesota, you probably know who Wally the Beer Man is. He's notorious. You know, he used to work Twins games, I believe, and Vikings games. He would just sell beer. You know, he'd walk up and down the aisles. Well, I thought I saw him in the hallway where I was buying a t-shirt. And I went up and I'm like, are you Wally the Beer Man? And his whole face got red. It's like he got really mad at me. He's like, no, do I look like I'm 90 years old? Jeez. And then I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, I guess Wally the Beer Man was like 70 when I was 12. So sorry, dude. I came back inside, went down all the stairs, and I looked over and KORN had this gigantic black curtain in front of their stage so they could sit up behind it. And I kept thinking how cool it would have been if written on it would have been, "Are you ready?" But that might have been cheesy as well. I'm not sure. As soon as KORN started, you know, the curtain came down and I was excited. The stage looked incredible. The sound was so massive. It shook my bones. I was like, oh man, this is going to be like when I saw Tool, and after the show, I felt like somebody had kicked me in the chest 1,000 times. It felt like I was getting hit with like a direct energy weapon. That's just kind of how I thought of it at the moment. I looked over and there was a family now standing next to me. And, you know, there was like a teenage daughter and a mom, and they all seemed fine. I don't even think they're wearing earplugs. And I'm like, God, I've been playing metal my entire life and I can barely handle this. They're over there smiling. So their opening song was called Here to Stay. I have to admit, I'm more of an old school KORN fan. If you watch my video where I talked about all their techniques, by the way, I'll put the link below for that, you'll find that I was more into their first two albums. And then my life kind of took a different path for a while away from KORN, but I ended up coming back later, but it took a while. I know I'm going to miss a few songs that they played, but the next one was Dead Bodies Everywhere, and then Adidas, followed by It's On. By the way, It's On was one of their best sounding songs of the night. There's just something about that tune. It just lends itself so well to being played live. And then they played Good God, which is one of my favorite intros. I just love those harmonics, you know, the demonic harmonic sounds that rhymed. And of course, it was on their second album, Life is Peachy, so it's still in my wheelhouse. I heard from a lot of people the same sentiment that I felt. It felt like you were so excited to see KORN and the sound and the lights were so insanely awesome. But the band themselves just feel like they've matured, obviously, over 30 years, and they're not as, you know, crazy energetic. And how can you expect them to be? Last time I saw them was in the 90s, and that was that time I roadied for Megadeth and KORN, and I actually stood on stage for some of it, and I just saw their energy, you know, and who knows what they were on back then, but it was crazy. So back then, KORN was like next level. When you see them today, you could tell they're a band that's been through the ringer. You know, they've done everything I'm sure that they could dream of in life. And now they're up there, they look more like they're enjoying it. So just because Jonathan Davis isn't doing backflips or something doesn't mean he's not, you know, into the music, but it just doesn't feel like they have that intensity. The music that they create has the intensity, but it just looks like they're a little bit more chill about it. When I watch old videos of my first metal band where we're just headbanging the whole time and jumping up and down, you know, I'm like, man, if I had just 1/10 of that energy still, I would be on fire. Now I would just wake up the next day paralyzed, you know, from the neck down. Like I mentioned before, the incredible light show and the sound more than make up for any loss of energy. This is a great example of it. I got a little bit nostalgic, I should say a lot nostalgic, when they started to play the songs from their debut album, especially when Jonathan went to the side of the stage and grabbed the bagpipes, because I was talking about it earlier when I roadied for them. I was on stage somehow next to the drummer. It was David back then. And there was a suitcase in front of me on a chair. I just was like, I don't know what that is. Maybe it's a costume change or something. Maybe it's a box of drugs. Who knows? But I recall Jonathan Davis running back towards me, opening the suitcase and pulling out his bagpipes back then. So to see him doing it on stage now was just surreal. So they were kicking into Chutes and Ladders, which, you know, like I said, is on their debut album. So it has a special place in my soul. And everything about the band is still so signature. You know, everything from Fieldy's bass tone it's so incredible the frequencies he was able to cover in a band like KORN. This is why they sounded so original when they first came out. If you listen to a KORN mix, you have the drums and the bass just creating this huge wall, and then the guitars fill out the outsides. But it's crazy how much space that bass tone takes up. And one of the reasons I bought this 7-string, by the way, I'm going to be doing a video about this guitar in a couple days. 7 strings is because of KORN and Steve Vai and Dream Theater. And they have their signature moves on the guitar, of course, and not to mention, you know, they barely have to move to look cool because of their dreads. They just have to shake their head a little bit and it looks like they're headbanging like crazy. And it really sucked for me when their original drummer, David, quit. But the guy they have, Ray, has been with them for 17 years, I guess. I did not realize that. So, of course, he's tight as hell back there. He knows what he's doing. During the nostalgia part of the set, you know, they played Blind, Ball Tongue, Clown. I felt like I was 18 again. The stage was super high tech. Above them was like this screen ceiling that would go up and down and flip around and stuff. Not flip around, I guess, but it would just come up like a screen. And then they would show all these great visuals on it. And then it would come down and it would make the stage look small. And then it'll open up again to feel like a stadium show. The technology that are in concerts today are so insane compared to what I grew up with. Back in the day, I thought it was cool if a band had a lot of lights and a cool backdrop. But now things are moving around. There's LEDs everywhere. It's nuts. Then they kicked into Twist. And like I said, I didn't capture the sign language ladies during that part. I really wish I would have. Then they played Make Me Bad and Y'all Wanna Single. I love the name of that song. Now, don't kill me, but I ended up leaving after their first encore song, which was Falling Away From Me. It was just one of those nights that was so overwhelming sense-wise. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to cruise now and try to avoid all the insane traffic afterwards. I was so out of it. But it didn't work out the way I planned. I left the venue from a different door and I actually got lost going back to my vehicle. So because I took so long to find my truck, by the time I did get to it, all the other concert goers were already out in their vehicles and I had to wait anyway. I'll just think of that as punishment for leaving the show early. All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed my stories as well as the visuals, you know, just putting the videos in and the pictures and all that kind of stuff. I hope you feel like you were there with me, even though my friend Chris couldn't be there. Sorry, Chris. But I have a good feeling Gojira's going to be around a long time, so we'll catch him next time. So, all right, everybody, thanks for watching. We'll catch you at the next video. Bye-bye.